George Duke was an American musician, known as a keyboard pioneer, composer, singer and producer in both jazz and popular mainstream musical genres. He worked with numerous artists as arranger, music director, writer and co-writer, record producer and as a professor of music. He first made a name for himself with the album The Jean-Luc Ponty Experience with the George Duke Trio. He was known primarily for 30-odd solo albums as well as for his collaborations with other musicians, particularly Frank Zappa. Biography. Early life. Duke attended Tamalpais High School in Mill Valley before earning a bachelor's degree in trombone and composition with a minor in contrabass, from the San Francisco Conservatory in 1967. Playing initially with friends from garages to local clubs, Duke quickly eased his way into session work, which refined his abilities and expanded his approach to music. He later earned his master's degree in composition from San Francisco State University. He also taught a course on jazz and American culture at Merritt College in Oakland. Career. Beginning in 1967, Duke experimented further with jazz fusion, playing and recording with violinist Jean-Luc Ponty, as well as performing with the Don Ellis Orchestra and Cannonball Adderley's band, while he acquainted himself with Frank Zappa. Duke appeared on a number of Frank Zappa's albums through the 1970s. Frank Zappa played guitar solos on Duke's 1974 album, Feel, the instrumental Old Slipper, and Love, credited as Opdial X, possibly due to contractual reasons. Duke covered 2 Zappa-composed songs on his 1975 album, The Aura Will Prevail, Uncle Remus, and Echidna Zappa that he had played on while a member of the Mothers on Zappa's albums. A further Zappa connection occurred on Duke's other album from 1975, I Love the Blues She Heard Me Cry, which utilized Ruth Underwood, Tom Fowler, and Bruce Fowler from Zappa's overnight sensation band that Duke was a part of, along with Zappa associate Johnny Guitar Watson and jazz guitarist Lee Ritenour. Duke served as a record producer and composer on 2 instrumental tracks on Miles Davis albums, Backyard Ritual, and Cobra. He has also worked with a number of Brazilian musicians, including singer Milton Nascimento, percussionist Airto Moreira and singer Flora Purim. Sheila E. appeared on Duke's late 1970s solo albums Don't Let Go and Master of the Game. Duke was prominent in the R&B genre, releasing funk-based songs like Reach for It, and Dukey Stick. In 1979 he traveled to Rio de Janeiro, where he recorded the album A Brazilian Love Affair, on which he employed singers Flora Purim and Milton Nascimento and percussionist Airto Moreira. The album contained music in a wide assortment of genres, including some Latin jazz and jazz-influenced material. From a jazz standpoint, the album's most noteworthy songs include Nascimento's Cravo e Canela, Love Reborn, and Up from the Sea at Eros and 8 Rio in One Swift Bite. The track Brazilian Sugar was featured on the 2006 video game Dead or Alive Extreme 2. Meanwhile, Nascimento's vocal on the ballad O Que Venência is an example of Brazilian pop at its most sensuous. The 1992 film Leap of Faith featured gospel songs and choir produced by George Duke and choir master Edwin Hawkins. Duke worked as musical director at numerous large-scale musical events, including the Nelson Mandela Tribute Concert at Wembley Stadium, London in 1988. In 1989, he temporarily replaced Marcus Miller as musical director of NBC's late-night music performance program Sunday Night during its first season. Duke was also a judge for the second annual Independent Music Awards to support independent artists' careers. Duke worked with Jill Scott on her third studio album, The Real Thing, Words and Sounds Volume 3. Guesting on the track, Whenever You're Around. In the summer of 2011, he put together a trio with David Sanborn and Marcus Miller for a tour across the U.S. of more than 20 sold-out shows. Legacy and influence. Duke died August 5, 2013 in Los Angeles from chronic lymphocytic leukemia. He was 67 and was survived by his sons, Rashid and John. He was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. Duke's songs have been used by a wide variety of contemporary musicians in a wide array of genres. These include, I Love You More, sampled by house music act Daft Punk for their hit Digital Love. Guilty, sampled by electronica music artist Marlo in his song Guilty of Love on Destroy Rock and Roll. For Love, sampled by underground hip-hop artist MF Doom on his track I Hear Voices. Someday, sampled by hip-hop artist producer Kanye West for Common in Break My Heart on his Finding Forever album. You and Me, sampled and used by soul rhythm and blues-influenced hip-hop producer Ninth Wonder for his collaboration album with Cars for the track Spirit of 94 on the album Spirit of 94, version 9.0. And Reach for It, sampled by Ice Cube and True to the Game on his Death Certificate album and Spice One in My Neighborhood on his self-titled debut album, and sampled by WC and the Mod Circle and West Up on their Curb Servin' album. Madlib utilized Duke's My Soul on the track Mingus from his Madlib Medicine Show No. 8, Advanced Jazz album. Duke was nominated for a Grammy as Best Contemporary Jazz Performance for After Hours in 1999. By popular vote, Duke was inducted into the Soul Music Hall of Fame at soulmusic.com in December 2012. Discography As Leader == 1 re-released as The Primal by MPS in 1978.2 re-released as Pacific Jazz by United Artists in 1978 albeit with a different track listing 3 Solus was recorded in April 1971 and intended to be released as a single album by SABA but when SABA folded and became MPS the powers that be decided to postpone its release. They finally put it out as a double album in 1976 together with George's MPS debut The Inner Source. The latter was recorded in October 1971.4 recorded in 1976 and released in 1978. Released in the USA as the 1976 solo keyboard album by Epic CBS in 1982. 5 recorded in 1993 at the Montreal Jazz Festival but the release got postponed until 1996. Compilations A Sideman with Al Jarreau. Breakin' Away, with Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, Chunga's Revenge, 200 Motels, Waka Jawaka, The Grand Wazoo, Overnight Sensation, Roxy and Elsewhere, One Size Fits All, Bongo Fury, Studio Tan, Sleep Dirt, The Morass, You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, Volume 2, La Currency There, The Dub Room Special, Road Tapes, Venue 2, A Token of His Extreme, Roxy by Proxy, with Third World, Lagos Jump, Try Jar Love, with the Keeneds, Get on That Gospel Train, with Gene Ammons, Brass Wind, with Billy Cobham, Crosswinds, BC. Picture This, with Eddie Henderson, Sunburst, with Alphonse Mouzon, The Man Incognito, with Eto Moreira, Virgin Land, with Flora Purim, Stories to Tell, Open Your Eyes, You Can Fly, That's What She Said, Carry On, with Michael Jackson, Off the Wall, with Jean-Luc Ponty, King Kong, Jean-Luc Ponty plays the music of Frank Zappa, Individual Choice, with Denise Williams, Let's Hear It for the Boy, Love, Niecy Style, with Miles Davis, Tutu, Amandla, with Diane Reeves, Never Too Far, Quiet After the Storm, Bridges, In the Moment Live in Concert, Beautiful Life, with John Scofield, Loud Jazz, with Chanter Copyright More, Precious, A Love Supreme, Love the Woman, with Joe Sample, Sample This, with Phil Collins, A Hot Night in Paris, with Regina Bell, Lazy Afternoon, with Tiana Marie, Congo Square, with Joe Williams Live. References. External links, official website, George Duke at the Internet Movie Database, George Duke at NPR Music, George Duke interview at allaboutjazz.com New album, More Treats. George Duke interview at allaboutjazz.com Deja Vu. George Duke 2012 interview part 1 at soulinterviews.com. George Duke 2012 interview part 2 at soulinterviews.com. Soul Music Hall of Fame at soulmusic.com, findargrave.com.